Very good evening to you. It's Friday night, just gone 7 o'clock, and as always, you're tuned to the Friday night football pitch with myself, Cammy McDonald, and as always, my co-host Dennis Newell. Tonight, Dennis and I should actually have it done together again as the theme tune. We're joined by former Clyde manager Billy Reid, obviously now at West Ham with his assistant, and Andy Millen, man of regular appearance on the show, obviously now at Green Up Morton. Guys, good evening to you. How are we?
I'm fine. Everybody else?
Good evening, Cammy.
Good evening, Billy. Long time no speak. How's things? What have you been up to?
Oh, it's been great, Cammy. Obviously, I've been down at West Ham for the past 8-9 weeks. A fantastic club. Really enjoying it, and hopefully we can do well this season.
Yeah, indeed. Andy, how's things? It's been a number of weeks since we've been on. Obviously, try to get you on, but been a wee bit of scouting during the week, and obviously Morton having games on a Friday night. But how's things been?
Yeah, been fine. Cammy, place is just normal, working away hard and see where it takes. We've got 6 games to go. At the moment, we're sitting in 5th place, so we'll see where it goes. Yeah,
sitting in 5th place, 4 points behind tomorrow's opponents, Partick Thistle.
Yeah, tough game tomorrow. Brian Graham's done well. She's in there. He's 5 undefeated at the moment, so he's doing well for a pitch for the job. Obviously, that I'm sure he would enjoy taking.
Yeah, Dennis, how's things? Busy week?
I'm fine. Yes, just busy as usual at work. Being a dinosaur, you've got to plough on. So busy but good.
Guys, can I ask you a question? Is Brian Graham the men's manager and the ladies' manager?
He's the men's manager at the moment, interim. He's the women's manager. He's the centre forward, and he's the captain.
I think Mark Wilson's
see the budget cuts at 5 mil. Unbelievable.
That's incredible.
But Mark Wilson's helping them out.
Yeah, but
Mark's more or less at the front, and then you've got him more or less just backing that up. So between the two of them, are running with it, and they've done well.
They've done well.
Again, if you look at it, I still
should be Dennis. It should be the
disbelieve Andy.
The budget that Partick Thistle got this season, Billy, they had a shot at the start. There's some big money went about Partick Thistle, Ayr United, Wraith Rovers. Livingston come down for the Premier League, which you would expect. Maybe even your Hamilton's not throwing good money at it, Billy.
Okay.
For one goal. Should I get the sack, Andy? Should I get the manager at Thistle? Should I have?
Well,
because he's in that long.
But their expectation, Dennis, is to be challenging for the league. Yeah. No fault. The gap that developed between Partick Thistle and then above that was Falkirk, Ayr United, and Livingston became too big.
10 points between them and Ayr United. Yeah.
And there's a good group of players at Partick Thistle. Chris Dillon was able to do that, obviously with the budget that he had, and he did use it wisely. But for some unknown reason, it didn't really work out as well as maybe they would have hoped.
Yeah.
It's been great for me to see the rise of Falkirk again, come up with divisions and, challenging to get back up in the Premier League.
Big club, Billy,
Big club, always produce young players and, really doing really well at the moment. It's nice to see.
Slipped up against Livingston. That's who you said maybe at the start of the season, Andy, Livingston. Yeah. Well, maybe a quarter into it, you said that Livingston was the best team you'd seen in the division.
I fancied Livingston between the 2 18-yard boxes, Billy. But the one thing that's happened, Livingston probably don't score enough goals, Billy. Whereas Falkirk middle to front are really, really right on the front foot, and he's got a really attacking team middle to front, and they'll get pace in the wider areas. John McClinn's had that team together, probably, Billy. This is maybe going into their 3rd season now, Billy, and you can see that they play together. But I would say they've won the league now, but overall, they've deserved to win the league. They have deserved to win. They're the best, the most consistent side over the season. And again, when Livingston maybe have drawn 0-0 or 1 each, Falkirk have nipped a game 2-1.
Yeah.
But they're a good side, Billy. And if you look at, you maybe not see that even down by where you're now, Billy, but the crowds are unbelievable. They're full houses.
It's fantastic. You know what I mean?
They're getting 7,000. That Billy, brilliant. And as you know, Billy, as well, playing against them and working against them, they are a big club, Billy. They are a big club.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And they will do well getting into the Premier League and playing at home, but I don't know how they'll fare away from him. But John McGlynn and Paul Smith have done a great job. Great job.
You're talking about their consistency, Andy, and I mean the one thing about them is Livy have took 10 points off them, and yet they still sit 8 points behind them. You know, so that just shows you the consistency that Livy have had.
But they're still they've played a game less than Falkirk, Cammy.
It's still a big gap, Dennis. It's a big gap.
There'll be only maybe 6 games left, Dennis, and they can even cut it down to 5. That's like another 2 game swing. So I mean, as I say, Falkirk, the gap's just become too much. And any time that Livingston had a chance to close the gap, they hadn't took it. And Ayr United's the same. Ayr United have lost their last 3 games, so they've maybe had a wee dip in form at the rank time of the season. Because again, Scott Brown's done well as well, Billy down there at Ayr. Yeah. Again, he's been well backed. The chairman down there has done a really, really good job in terms of I don't know if you know, opposite the main stand, they built a new terracing bit with executive boxes. It's beautiful. And obviously the chairman's backed Scott Brown really well.
Mm. I watched I was up at I watched the Airdrie versus Ayr United at Airdrie. And Ayr United, that'd be a big strong side, you know. Functioning side, you know, strength in every area of the pitch. I think Airdrie had a lot of injuries late enough. Have Airdrie got any chance of coming back from where they are? Is it too late for them?
Well, what I'll say, Billy, we played them, say, 6 weeks ago at Capello. Again, you know me well enough, Billy, I'm all respectful. We drew with them 1 each. People in our club mumping and moaning at that point, and actually says that could be a good point coming into the season because they're fighting. Yeah, and they are fighting. They're a good football side.
Yep.
And they've maybe not done as well as last season because they lost 4 or 5 of the experienced players. Yep. And he's got a really, really young side with no experience in his team, Billy. And that's maybe what's hunted him this season. But I still believe they've got a chance, Billy. I really do. And again, they win tomorrow, winning Wednesday against Queen's Park at Hampden. And Dunfermline don't get a result tomorrow, the gap cuts again, Billy. Mm-hmm. And they've still to play Dunfermline, and they've still to play Queen's Park. Okay. So I still believe with 6 games to go, they've got a chance still of getting second bottom, Billy. I really do. I mean, at one stage they were well out at Billy, but to be fair to Rhys McCabe and his players.
There's a game, Andy, on the 26th of April where Dunfermline are playing Airdrie. That's a 6-pointer. So I know it's near the end of the month, but the bottom line is that could be crucial.
Whether or not it'll be done before then, Dennis,
I know that.
Close that gap. Try to close that gap. But I do. I still believe they've got an outside chance, Billy, of finishing second bottom.
Yeah. And Andy, how important was Scott Arfield signing for Falkirk? You know, that seemed to give them a wee push, and I'm just wondering if Dunfermline bringing in Wanyama could be the push that just helps keep them up.
I think the difference here, Billy, I'm sure, as a manager, will probably agree with me here. Scott Arfield was playing, but Scott Arfield's come back to a Falkirk side. It's on the front foot, and him being that elder statesman has been able to give them his experience and the calmness that they'll need to get on the line. I think he's been a great signing for them. Yeah. And going to Victor Wanyama, I don't know if his conditions like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, again, he's not had a club since probably December. So that's 3 months, and you know yourself, Billy, you can do all the training you want and all that, but nobody. I don't know how that'll affect him.
Yeah.
One thing about Dunfermline, they've got an owner that has got a bottomless pit.
Okay.
It's a pity was the Scottish Wanyama, because he would get a game with us because he plays players that are not playing every week either.
Yeah.
I think Scott Arfield's a great signing.
I'm the same, Billy.
He plays with great enthusiasm, whatever club he's ever been at as a boy when I've seen him play. Yeah. He plays with great enthusiasm, freedom, and go to a level probably I never thought he was going to get to because he's just,
I agree with that.
You know, fantastic person, I think, to be about the place, you know.
Yeah, that's a shame.
But the Wanyama situation, I'm not too sure about. As you say, I don't know, what sort of fitness level he's at, type of thing. Big, strong lad. I don't know what Dunfermline need to make them better. To be honest with you, I don't really know.
What you saw what happened with Dunfermline was Dunfermline chased a manager, and Michael Tizzer and his assistant from Kelty Hearts. They eventually brought the boy in, young manager, who'd done really well at Kelty Hearts. He had 8 league games, and 3 cup games sacked. And the 8 or 9 players that were brought in January, not one of them were Michael Tizzers.
I was astonished. I seen that, Andy, when Michael was released. I couldn't understand it, but it's the madness of football, It's the madness of football, where a young lad's come in there and not being given an opportunity to put any stamp on anything after being headhunted and let go within that amount of time. It's crazy for me. It's crazy.
Yeah, I think that's the way nowadays.
And the way the club to Michael, I'm led to believe, was it wouldn't matter. Don't worry about relegation. I want you to go in. What with younger players, certain age. So actually, all the players that were brought in, believe were all 18, 19, 22 max, if you're lucky. But then all of a sudden, parameter changes, and you know yourself. Once clubs at the bottom, the firm's a big club, Billy. A big club. I mean, they're like the firm again. If they can get up and running, the fan base have got there. But all of a sudden, the supporters weren't having it. So when the supporters started getting onto the board, and the guys in Vegas, and he's always getting told things aren't too good here, then they bumped the manager, and they went and got somebody the complete opposite to Michael Tidser. So they've got somebody who's a young, aspiring manager to somebody of the experience. Neil Lennon, who's managed Celtic twice, and just the experience he's got as a manager. So there's no logic in terms of how that club went from 12 weeks ago to where it is now. Like that, I really can't understand that. I don't understand it. Really don't.
When you spoke about the golden ticket, you spoke about obviously big clubs in the Championship and things like that. And it still begs the old question is why the hell is our Premier League stuck to the amount of clubs it is? When you've got Dunfermline, you've got Falkirk, you've got Ayr United, you've got Partick Thistle. You've got massive clubs by comparison in the Championship, and yet we are still stuck in this predictable, stagnant, boring top league.
I don't. Billy will probably know about me and me in that side yet. Where I can only go with when I was at St Mirren years ago, and in the Premier League. And I've told you before. I remember Willie Miller coming into the room and speaking about the Premier League, and at that time they were trying to get the league bigger, so it was a 12. They were wanting it smaller. The cake. It's all about money, and you know what like it is, Billy.
Yeah.
If you get 12 teams, the cake's getting stretched as it is, and I believe a bigger league. They'll not do it. I don't think they'll ever do it, right?
No.
Because what would happen is they need the 4 games of Celtic Rangers. They need that as well. And then if you make the league bigger, you'll not get the 4 games.
Yeah.
Me personally, I've said to you before, they'll never change that. Me personally would look at what the Championship is now. I would go, instead of having Championship 1 and 2, I would just split that in half. And I would go two leagues, 2 bigger leagues, and then just have straight up 2 down, 2 up. That's what I would do personally. You know what I mean? But that'll never. Listen, but Billy's a football guy. I'm a football guy. I bet you nobody's ever has to Billy Reid, who, and I know patronising him here on here, he's managed Hamilton. He went to Hamilton, he goes to Sweden, he comes back into England, he goes to Swansea, he goes to Brighton, and he's at West Ham. Nobody will say to Billy Reid in Scottish football, what do you think's the best thing for Scottish football? Because you wouldn't listen to him anyway. But you've got people who have never played football making decisions now again. The youth system is getting changed again. So we went to 18s football, we went to 19s football, we went back to 18s football, now we've got to 19s football.
Yeah.
The biggest problem in the football now is when you come out of youth football 18s or 19s, there's no middle ground, there's no reserve football anymore. They've done away with
it. Back to discussing reserve football, Andy, way back when that stopped, and that was one of the biggest failures that they ever had, because the permutations you had with having a reserve team for players improving, getting back to fitness, youngsters coming through, was second to none, and they just done away with that.
But Dennis said that the bigger clubs drove that away.
I know, that's the point I'm making.
And the other thing that happens is, and again, because I'm older now, I think more about that, it's all down to finance. Teams can't afford.
That's what I'm going to say, is that money.
Teams take that. No, you know yourself, innit? It could be. I don't know. I'm just guessing. They're on a reserve team. It could be comfortably over $100,000 a year.
Have you got a reserve team, Billy?
We get down to under 21s. It goes to under 21s, then under 18s, obviously. No, just touching on that point, it's like, for my time in Scottish football, I think there's been so many talented young players wasted in Scotland.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, I could name a list of young players I've seen and thinking they should make it, but they don't make it for whatever reason. It's hard to put my finger on exactly what it is, and you probably know what I'm talking about there, Andy.
Aye.
With a lot of young players through Celtic and Rangers and different clubs who haven't made it in Scottish football, and I think that's a travesty for me.
But Billy, I'm just hearing drips that's coming down where I'm at the club, and there's guys making decisions in the SFA, and no disrespect to the guys, they've not been involved in football, they've not played football, and they've not been sitting in the sharp end, as I call it, and seeing how the clubs work, how the players work, and they keep saying you're not producing this, that, and that. You know, Billy. When I came to Clyde, you were working me on the under 18. We'll say, right? Yeah. When you think of that squad that I went in and worked beside yourself. Yeah. And as I always call it, lovable rogues, right? They just needed guidance somewhere, Billy. Yeah. But what happens is now they keep saying about, we're not producing this, we're not producing that. But sometimes the clubs themselves aren't gaining the time that these boys need, Billy. So,
definitely.
You look at. I remember speaking to yourself, and it's true. And I say to this day, you see the wee guy training, and the clubs have been it. I keep hearing them crying about this winning and doing this and that. I says it's not about winning. I says don't want to win. What do you mean? I says you don't need to tell them about that. I says they're inside. Don't want to win. You know what the best thing you've got to do? Control passing the ball, control pass move, and they'll look at you. And I says remember, it's not your team. But it's not your team. I says, you've got to develop the boys so that by the time they're 16, they can control, pass the ball, and then see by the time they start growing into their body physically, then they can become that young man who's got that physicality and the power. You might get somebody, as you know, Billy, at 16, even 18, he's like a jockey's whip. Yep. And then by the time he gets to 21, 22, he's just sprouting and building up. But everybody's different, and sometimes you'll get boys at 16, 14, 15, 16 who are a boy in a man's body. Yeah. Mm-hmm. There's no logic to it. But you've got guys in the SFA, Billy. These two guys, I'm not going to mention names, I don't know them. But I'm going, never heard these. And yet they're saying about we need under 19 football and all that. They've already had all that, Billy. They need that reserve football that we used to do. They don't do it anymore, Billy, because the big clubs don't want it. They don't want it. They don't want it. So what's happening is a lot of clubs now are discouraged away from that. And they kids that say 18, when the manager has got a first team squad, they'll just say 20 players, Billy, at our level. He's going to make a decision now on a young boy to come into that squad. And no one actually play for them. But he's got to be part of his wage bill. You know yourself, Bill, how it all works. So that manager's got a budget. But he's one of the players of the 18 players who's going to take a wage off of him. Yeah. But he's not ready to play in the first team, Billy. No, of course. So there's nowhere for them to go. Yeah.
Agree.
Yeah. Dennis.
Where do we go from the Championship? Back down to England, I think.
Okay.
Billy,
yes.
How's it been since you left Sweden? Because we know the history of Sweden. We had you on the radio at that time when you were there. And then obviously you end up in Swansea, down to Brighton. Now, Brighton was a magnificent story and obviously a move you couldn't resist. financially as well as a club as Chelsea, and then you're now at West Ham. Looking and speaking to you recently, you've talked about how good West Ham is, but if you go back to the Brighton scenario, could you have taken that much further?
Well, Dennis, when we left Brighton, it was 3 seasons and 8 games into the season. And in the 8 games, we were sitting 4th in the league. So we started the season really, really well.
Yeah.
And then Chelsea came in. It was an offer and a job that Graham couldn't really, refuse. Brighton was a well-run operation and still is. You see how they went from success to success, and how the amount of players they bring through the system and then move them on for millions and millions is really, really impressive. The training facilities and everything about Brighton is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
There was scope to go on for Brighton, but we made the decision to go to Chelsea. Probably the wrong timing. And that's where West Ham feels better. It feels it's the right time to get to West Ham. And the first 9 weeks have been difficult. We took over a team who had lost 40 goals in 20 games, league games. So that's two goals against a game.
Yeah.
You don't need to work out the mathematics. If you lose 2 goals every game, then you're going to have problems. So we've showed that up a bit. We're a long way from playing the style of football that we want to play at West Ham. It's going to take a bit of time, and hopefully we get that time there.
Yeah, but on the Brighton front, because it's spilled over a little bit into Scotland with Hearts, and this is what I was sort of edging towards. There's an analytical system that Tony Bloom uses. Now, see, when you were there, who identified the players and what decision making did you have in relation to bringing the players in? And what's the norm for this now? Because obviously, Andy, you're at Morton, it'll be a different formula altogether. But what's happened is that Hearts have actually had Tony Bloom having that influence, and they've brought a big centre forward to Hearts, who's made a massive difference. It's the same system. Was it being used at Brighton? And how did you find players? Because you touched on it there. The amount of players and money that was made with players leaving Brighton that had done you a great job was incredible. You've even had World Cup winners in it. So is it a system? Because I asked one of the Hearts supporters last week who we had on how the system works. I'm not 100% sure yet. Is it something that you are really genned up on and have to be aware of?
Dennis, we probably, weren't privy to the actual numbers and the system that was given.
Right.
Once they had identified players, then I wasn't, but Kyle McCauley and that were then asked what players that they would like if it be Dan Ashworth as well. So what I will say is, I think it's a fantastic opportunity for Hearts Football Club to have Tony Bloom involved with them. They will pick players for different leagues, players you've not heard of. You'll bring them in, players you've not heard of. And I'm almost guarantee that this is going to be a success for Hearts. I'm almost certain it's a fantastic time to be a Hearts supporter with Tony Bloom involved at the football club.
Yeah. But how does it, if we look at players, say, like, I'm trying to think who you're in, say Trossard as an example, not my favourite cup of tea. How did he arrive in the scene at Brighton as an example? And then you've got McAllister, World Cup winner. So how did you end up with him, Billy?
It's just it's down to their numbers. They play in a specific league, and if their numbers come up to scratch, then you look at that player, and then you decide the player. Then you find out the character of the player. Yeah. You find out he's going to fit into your system. Alexis McAllister, still played with his team, in Argentina before he came here, so he developed a bit. Moises Caicedo came to the club. I think they paid £4 million for him, £4.5 million. But he went out to a club in Belgium, the bottom team in Belgium. And when he came back to us, they lost 7-0 in the last league game. Then he goes for 100-odd million to Chelsea. So they're incredible stories, Dennis.
You'd be on all night telling us them, I know that. But it's just interesting how the game has changed. And that's then back to Andy, where you look at potentially the basement and bottom buys, Andy. I mean, where are you at Morton in relation to the story that Billy's got there, the way the English system works?
The likes of, remember, they're and Billy will tell you that down in England, they're working on a different market to even Scotland, even Glasgow, Celtic, Rangers. I mean, the likes of Morton. Realistically, Dennis, we're at the bottom of the ladder, even in the Championship when it comes to players. And what I mean by that is, the agents will bring players on, and they'll go and they'll give them to the higher ones because you'll pay more money. That's normally what happens. Am I right, Billy? That'll even happen at the top end, right? And then they can't afford that, or they'll not want to pay that, so then they'll come. We're always the last call. It's slow. It's different. Where your level, where you've got a lot of Scottish boys, you're out and about games anyway, Dennis. But then if you've got a couple of English boys, which we have, we've got a couple for London. We've got a couple we've got one for Ireland. We've got one an English centre back. We've got probably five, 6 players that are on the Scottish. But some of the boys have played in the Championship. So we knew of them. 2 boys that the manager brought up, one for London, played non-league, and he brought another one for Wales, who played with, I think it was Connor Kays. He went and saw them, and he made his judgment on watching him a couple of times. But sometimes you have got to take a gamble sometimes, right, to freshen it up. But our level's not even a patch of where Billy is.
So you're not really looking at the stats. That's what I mean.
What Billy's... Billy will tell you this. He maybe don't know. I'm not saying I know everything either. But what he means with stats is, just say we're talking shit. How many runs you make. How many goals you score? Where do you score your goals to? If you're a wide player, what kind of mileage do you make? No, and I spoke twice about the mileage, how much running you do, how many crosses you do, how many cross entries or final entries, how many goals you score at the back post or whatever. And then you've got fullbacks. Again, and then they put it all in, Billy, and then they wash it all about, and then it comes out and goes, there's 5 players that have got ba. And then it comes down to picking the guy. But I don't know, Billy agrees with me. Me personally, if you're a player, regarding whether you're at, I know there's a different level of player, right? Whether you're at Albion Rovers or whether you're at Celtic, I'm talking about Scotland, timing and luck's a big thing. But Billy touched on it earlier, where there's a lot of good players never ever get the opportunity to go and play at a better level or a better club than what they are, because sometimes they're just not fashionable. Sometimes somebody doesn't give them that opportunity, and yet it's when you move from there and you go into a so-called bigger club, he's still the same player, but he's a better player because you're going to play with better players, and the game becomes easier then.
That takes me to the point which is relevant here is, if you're 16-year-old, you're not going to have all these stats behind you. So,
Dennis,
you do develop a little bit later.
I saw something, not the paper, but on the phone. There's a guy, France, 2 guys in France, and they are now set up a company that film games for under 12 to under 16, and they're scouring South America and Europe for players for clubs. And what they're doing is, they're going to try now and get the clubs to do the footage, and they'll look at it, cut it, and then they'll try and pass that on to, i.e., a West Ham, a Liverpool, a Man United. We've got such and such in this country. Have a look at them. And by the way, Tony Bloom must have done that for the ones coming from Argentina or whatever, Billy. You know what I mean? Younger ones going to South America, and that's what they do. Most guys, most agents are looking for that, as I call it, the golden nugget. Because that one guy can bring a bucket full of money to that agent. And that's how it all works, Dennis.
Yeah. No, I think some of it's logical in the way it's done. Just sometimes maybe the dinosaur, as we know, is the fact that sometimes stats don't always add up to a good player, and the days are gone by where you used to get managers and coaches standing at the touchline watching a game. When did you last do that looking at a player, Billy?
No, but Dennis, what I'll say to that is, not all the signings work at Brighton. I could name a lot of guys you've never heard of who don't make it. But for the fees they're paying these guys and the money they're paying them, coming from sort of lower leagues and different leagues, different quality leagues, it's still worth taking that opportunity, bringing in their system and try to push it through. And it's been proven, right? But there is failures. You know, they take a chance in certain guys, and they don't, you know, they don't come through. And one of the big things, Andy, you'll know as much as me in this, is the character of the player is huge.
Yeah.
Even more so in the modern game, I think it's going to look to that. Yeah. You know, you get the right people in your club, and you get a group of players, you can build something really strong. You bring in 4 or 5 not so good characters, and it can go the other way so quickly. Quickly, and Andy knows.
What see what Billy's saying. Sorry, Dennis, Cammy. I think I told you the story when I was at Kilmarnock. The Italian manager at that time, he brought in 2 players from Italy. The 2 of them were out of Juventus, and the boys spoke well, good English. One was a goalkeeper, one was a centre back, and they were telling us how it works there. Now, what's happened in abroad in Europe? This is new what's happening in the English market. Just say for talk's sake, like a Brighton, where in Juventus there was something like maybe 65, 70 players signed. But some of these boys would never be anywhere near the first team. What happens is they've got a group of first team, but see, these boys are still under Juventus, so they go out on loan here, go out on loan there, and when they come back in, if they're doing no bad, somebody will go and buy them.
Yeah.
So it's a business. As much as
you're getting 100% transfer fee as well.
That's what it is. So it's all money. So the money that you're spending out, you're hoping you're investing, and then you can actually generate more money on top of that to go and get more players in.
Yeah. But how many players do you reckon you've got farmed out at this moment in time at West Ham, Billy?
Good question. I would reckon there's probably about 20 players loaned out. About 20 players. Younger players. We've got some experienced players out. The boy Agard's at Real Sociedad. The boy Maxwell Cornets in Spain as well. So there's experienced guys. James Ward-Prowse was in Notts Forest until we brought him back, which was incredible if I look at the situation. But no, there's a lot of players out on loan. You know, boy Freddie Potts, come back to us pre-season. He's in loan to Portsmouth playing the Championship every game. You know, as a 20-year-old boy, 19, 20-year-old boy. So the experience he's gaining, you know, at the start of the season, they were down the bottom end of the table fighting for relegation, and they've come through that. And, you know, it's invaluable going out on loan for some of these lads, you know. Yeah.
Well, the boy White you had at Brighton was a prime example of that.
Oh, Ben White. He's one of the players who's played in every division in England.
Yeah.
He's played in the bottom division all the way up to the top. He's playing Champions League football now.
Yeah.
You know, I remember he was in League One at the time, and we were at Swansea, and we quite liked him. We tried to sign him, and I spoke to his manager, and he said he'll play for England. And I thought, that's some statement. He's playing League One football. He'll play for England. Sure as behold, he did play for England. You know.
He's right enough. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. What was that? £50 million you sold him for?
He came through the youth system. I think he went for 52 million.
Incredible, isn't it?
It's something else, isn't it?
I mean, if you got a player like that at Morton, Andy, I mean, it's unthinkable, really. Just even one player. If you look at the potential that footballers have got now.
What I'll say, Dennis, and I don't know, Billy or Cammy agree here, and I know it sounds a bit negative, but I believe that the days of, if I go back to the 80s or the 90s, when players were constantly getting moved between Scottish clubs or English clubs were coming and taking new players for the Championship or the Premier League, you don't see that very often now. What they tend to do, they'll go and get a boy of maybe 17, 18, pay 250,000 cross-border fee for them and put them in the under-23 because that money is nothing to a Premier League club down in England. So what clubs? Our club, some people actually believe that they're going to be able to sell all these players, and unfortunately, I don't think that happens anymore. I don't know whether you agree on that, Billy. You'll get the odd one. I'm talking about in Scottish football, Billy. You'll get the odd one that'll get sold, but the days are big. I'm talking about at a lower level, Billy. You'll get maybe like you're talking about the boy Lennon Miller at Motherwell, and that, but I'm talking about in the Scottish Championship, which used to happen in the 90s. I'll go the 90s when I was with Billy at Hamilton. Hamilton sold Paul McDonald to Southampton, Colin Cram to Southampton. I mean, they sold boys like that. They sold boys down south. I mean, and obviously when Billy was at Hamilton, he sold the two, MacArthur and McCarthy.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
even Hamilton, it's dried up. Because the market might be looking somewhere else now.
But is that something?
But Hamilton were a Premier League club at that time, I think, were they not?
Yeah, they were
when they moved McCarthy and MacArthur on, they were Premier League, wasn't it?
But what ages were they?
No, but Billy, to be fair to him, I remember in the Championship playing Hamilton, the boy MacArthur, Billy, the midfield boy. You know the one that went to Celtic, James. What's the other one?
James McCarthy.
He was playing. I played against him as a kid.
Yeah.
But so what Billy says earlier, he probably had some like. By the time he's in the Premier League, he might have maybe, I don't know, 40 odd games, 50 games, Billy, in the Championship before he went into the Premier League. Maybe that.
Yeah. So, Andy, I think, one of the things, you're right in saying that, what you say, but one of the things for me is other countries in the world are more developed now, I'm talking about Danish players, Norwegian players, African players. They're signing, these clubs are signing all these guys for all these nations, America's a rising nation as well, Australian players. That was never the case way back before. There's the odd ones, but now there's players coming from all countries. I think that's hampered Scotland.
But Billy, I have a big. Again, my bottle's maybe half empty all the time. I'm a realist. It's like everybody talks about Scotland national team. They play such and such. Scotland national team is now overtaking a load of countries, because what Scotland used to be in the 70s, 80s, 90s, where they were qualifying for tournaments all the time, Nora. All these countries are actually starting to push forward stronger. And because the infrastructure within their football has actually developed better, we hadn't done that, Billy, when the country was being successful. We weren't trying to build and make it better. We were probably a wee bit lazy, nonchalant, and say, we will be doing this all the time. But these countries that maybe were finding it hard, they says, how can we improve? You were in Sweden, but look at how much Sweden did.
Yeah, no, exactly, Andy. You just need to look at the Japanese players at Celtic. The success they guys have had. The Korean players, the way Matoma at Brighton, I talk about him now. That was never really known before, but now these countries are all producing top players,
And what's happening is, if it's not their own coaches, Billy, they're going outside their country and bringing a Scottish guy, an English guy, a German guy, an Italian guy, a South American guy into their country, and then they're starting to develop, and they're seeing what happens in terms of what they're doing for training, and they're maybe getting different ideas, and then they're adding on, like Australia. Australia is a very athletic country, Billy, really powerful, and you look at like the South American is the technical side. But the one thing you mentioned there, Billy, with a lot of their players, they all run, Billy. They all run. They run. And unfortunately, if you can't run now in the modern day game, and you don't want to run, you're no day, Billy. You don't last.
Physicality is certainly a big thing now, you know what I mean? You always had to run, but it's even more so and that's the thing with the Premier League. When you go and you sit in the touchline, you see the speed and the physicality of some of these players is of a high level.
To me, Billy, I'm not going to ask you. It's just when you're sitting watching it right next to it, when the part, it's the power and the pace of them is incredible.
Time and space, Andy. Time and space is incredible, absolutely incredible.
But Billy, their touch is immense. It's unbelievable, their touch, because that gives them that time and space. But I've never seen so much quality in the Champions League and the Premiership in all my life as I have the last 2 years. The touch has improved dramatically. And we don't have that in Scotland. I think that's one of the things. And you touched on it early, Andy, to work on the touch, and I don't think that we're good enough in Scotland. And that's how you get a stray passes.
When I was at Clyde with Billy, and I used to do the first watching before I went in, but then I went into Clyde, and all he done with these players was all technical stuff, Billy, wasn't it? So the young boys, that's what he done. Always technical, technique. And I don't mean this trick and turn, just control, pass, move, being able to control the ball with inside your foot, pass it with inside your foot, and then your better ones have got a better range of passing. No, everybody's going to be the same. Understand that, but you've got to be able to handle the ball.
Yeah, absolutely, Andy.
And get back here, Billy. Just quickly, this week I was talking to we've got Niall McGinn at the club, right?
Okay.
He played at Celtic, Aberdeen, Northern Ireland International. I was actually talking to him about international football.
Yeah.
He says they played Germany. I think it was in the Euro Championship, Billy. He says, we weren't a bad side. He says, and you're actually thinking, I was saying to him about just earlier about the power and the pace. He says, the Germans were a different world. He says, I kid you not, Andy. He says, every one of them was 6 foot plus. He says, the centre backs 1v1 at the back, and they just kept pushing. He says, but you actually think you're fit and you're strong. By the way, that's Northern Ireland, you know what I mean? And he's been a really good player, Niall McGinn.
And he could run, Andy. He could run. Niall McGinn can move, you know.
Yeah.
No, he says the Germans were a different level, but that's what he says. He says, and not just one of them, the whole lot of them. Lot of them. And it's as I say, I remember actually a couple of years ago about the Premier League, and you just says the power when you're sitting watching it, you're just boom. Do you find that at your own training, Billy? It can be like
absolutely, Andy. They can all move. You're playing the Premier League. You're an athlete, you know. You can move. You're there for a reason. I think. Yeah. I don't know. It's a different subject. I don't know if you've seen the. I watched the game. I watched Paris Saint-Germain play against Liverpool in the Champions League.
And Paris Saint-Germain.
Oh, now we're talking.
That was frightening, Billy. That game in France was frightening.
It's Liverpool, 12 points clear the Premier League. You see Paris Saint-Germain. Throw Liverpool all over the place. Technically, physically, was incredible.
We had a losing game. It was at the time.
And I mean, that was the astonishing thing, the fact they still lost the game, Obviously, the game in Paris, they still lost, Ultimately, they got through. But to lose that game in Paris, Billy, with the possession they had, the stats they had, everything was just, they should have hammered them 6 or 7.
Yeah, that was one of the best games I've seen for a long time, Billy. Just the quality of the game was unbelievable, Billy.
Totally agree, Andy. I think they'll win the Champions League. I think they'll win it.
PSG.
I think PSG will win it. What I've seen, take some stock, that's for sure.
Yeah. There definitely doesn't seem to be a team that's got the measure of them. I mean, Madrid have looked decent. Munich have looked decent. But you're right. Paris Saint-Germain just look as if they're going to blow anybody else out of the water, Billy.
Wow. High level.
How are you looking for the remainder of the season, Billy?
We've got 9 games to go, Dennis. Wolves away is next. Then it's Bournemouth at home. Then Liverpool away. I think I'm right. What are you saying? Yeah, we're fine. You know what I mean? We're trying to develop a playing style, which I say is going to take some time. The players are getting to know us, day by day. The more training sessions we do, the better for us. But, still get as many points as we can at the end of the season like any team.
Has the players been receptive, Billy, to what you're trying to get across?
I've got to say aye, Andy. I've got to say aye. Certainly in terms of, defensive-wise and shape-wise, we're a lot better. We're a lot better, conceding loads less chances. So that side of things. But creating has been a wee bit of a problem for us. And that's the part we're starting to work on a bit more now, because we had to leak the goals, stop the goals, and hopefully start creating a few more chances to score goals. We've got the players, Andy. You've got Jared Bowen, you've got Mohamed Kudus, big boy Fulkrig's just coming back to fitness. Evan Ferguson's just getting back to fitness. Danny Ings is there. So we have got the players to make chances and score goals. That's the next part of the jigsaw for us, Andy.
Yeah. Obviously you have inherited that team that was poorer than it is now, whether that's up for debate with anybody that's watching it or not watching it. But it has improved, and I was talking to you about that last week, obviously. But the thing is, when you look at the close season, are you using the throes of identifying what you would need for next season? Is that an ongoing process, which I'd imagine is at every club?
Dennis, just what you said there, he took the words out of my mouth there, that every club, whether it's Morton or West Ham, are looking to see what they can hopefully, freshen up, use that word, freshen up. But there's players in contract there. Some players may want to leave. Obviously, we're looking at certain players that can maybe make us better, like everybody. But, Dennis, it's not just as easy as getting and changing things that quick. It's not easy, sir. It takes 2, 3, 4 windows to eventually get your players into the building,
Yeah. How is the stadium in relation to? Is it a bit further away from the pitch than you're familiar with?
It's further away from the pitch, Dennis, but it's Olympic Stadium, with 66,000 people there. It's an incredible place to play. But the home form has not been good enough, so the fans they've not a lot to shout about, if I'm being honest. Yeah, it's a bit farther away, but if you put a team in the pitch and it's it's winning games and playing on the front foot, the atmosphere there will be incredible, Dennis.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah. Tell me something as well, Billy. What's the major changes you've seen in the game over the years? I mean, if you look at it, you and Andy got as well. Andy can go back with this. We always have a bit of banter about it. But the thing is, if you look back even for the days of not even junior, you take it to when you were playing and then into management and then into where you are now. I know we talked about all the stats and everything else, so that would probably be a key part of it. But can you think of maybe a couple of things that you can think, I'd never envisaged that's the way the game would be now?
And it's just the infrastructure, these big football clubs, the analysts, how in-depth they go and everything, how everything the players do, for the minute they walk in the morning to the leave is monitored. It's, it's miles away from where me and Andy, played at Hamilton Accies. It's just a different world, Dennis, The entourage that goes to the away games, the media and the press, it's just it's a million miles away,
Staff-wise, how many staff do you reckon you've got? Because I noticed this with Man City when they win the league, they all get paraded out onto the park, and I stopped counting at 42 staff members. I mean, are you in that zone as well?
We all be the same, Dennis. We all be the same. It's incredible, what goes through behind the scenes.
That's unbelievable, really, when you think it for a football match.
Yeah.
Yeah. I used to be in a position we get that as a crowd. I was over the moon.
Yeah.
That was a good day, Dennis, wasn't it?
That was a good day, Billy. But you took up 2 of my comps.
So, Billy, a club like West Ham, what's success for a club like West Ham? Obviously, David Moyes won a European trophy a couple of seasons ago and then left the club. There's been a kind of conveyor belt of managers, obviously with Julian Lopetegui, then obviously yourselves down there. But what ultimately is seen as being success? What's a club like that looking for?
You could probably say, Cammy, that this is the thing down south that I find that all these clubs want to be in Europe, right? But they all can't get to Europe. It's impossible, But I think top 8, challenging for Europe, producing young players, developing players. I think that's success for West Ham at the moment, And if we could develop players, sell them on, improve players, because I think as a management team, I think that's your job as well. Not just winning games, is to develop players within your system. I think that would be seen as positive. But listen, it's like any other football club. Doesn't matter about year. You have to get results, And Davy Moyes was, he left the club. He wasn't sacked, but he left the club for whatever reason. Won the European trophy. I think he finished 8th and 6th in a couple of years. So that way, Davy Moyes done a fantastic job here,
That's right.
Yeah. I mean, you're talking about obviously development of young players. You move down the road just to Brentford. Obviously, they've got the kind of Moneyball system where stats and analytics is really for them to be moving players on. West Ham aren't quite in that situation where they're bringing players in to sell them, but in terms of development, it's developing the young talent and making them West Ham legends, if you like. Yeah, I think so. I think Brentford in the same mould as Brighton, exact same mould, and it works again for them. I think any club I've worked at, Cammy, is about developing players and bringing young talent through. I think every club has to do that. They're there. We've got good young players in the system. There's a boy called Ollie Scarles, who's just come in. He made his debut at 16 in the Conference League. I think he played against Bucharest, and he got the man of the match at 16-year-old. He never made a Premier League debut since that. He's now 19 years old.
He's made 3 appearances, full appearances already under us. You know, so bringing in these young players, to me, is certainly the way forward.
Yeah. And that lad, Evan Ferguson, is that the guy you had at Brighton?
Yeah.
I think it was yourself and Graham Potter that gave him a game, wasn't it?
Yeah, we gave him his debut at 16, going on 17. Fantastic young talent. Has been hampered by injuries in the last couple of years. He's not the best at times. Oh, he still scored maybe 12, 15 Premier League goals. Leads the line for Ireland. We took him in loan. He's been a couple of injuries, but he's starting to come through now, and he'll play before the end of the season.
Yeah. And talking of injuries, I think it would be remiss of us not to ask how Mikel Antonio is. Well,
it's funny, he was on the pitch today. He's been on the pitch maybe over the last couple of weeks, but he was actually doing some running today. He's just trying to get his movement patterns going. You know, he's been through something horrific, really horrific.
Yep.
And he's so positive as a guy. It's incredible how positive he is, and he's that driven to get back into the game. But listen, it's baby steps at a time. He's well ahead of schedule, and you see him running the day, you know, and it's like, wow, how has he achieved that in such a short time? And it's all credit to the person, you know, within, you know.
Yeah.
Andy, just on something, I'm not sure if you've had these in any of your games when you've been at Morton, and I want to know Billy's view as well. VAR, because I have a rant. We both have a rant, Cammy and I, about VAR.
My experience of VAR, I've had it twice. Morton played Celtic at Parkhead.
That's right.
Where referee, who's now retired, called Craig Napier, gave a handball against Effie Ambrose. Never a handball. Effie Ambrose knew nothing about it. It bounced up off of somebody's foot, hurt his arm. Kevin Clancy gave it. We got told never a penalty kick. That didn't make any difference. That gave them the equaliser, right? But my experience of that day was looking over to the bench, and Andrew was a manager, and John Kennedy, and I went, what happens now? And he says to me, sent over to the monitor, it'll be a penalty. I went, what? He says, I'll guarantee it's a penalty kick. Listen, Dennis, it's no my cup of tea at times. I go, wow.
It's not mine. That's why I asked you first. Billy, what's your own thoughts on it?
Well, I think VAR's a good thing, guys. Because when something like that happens, you think it's unjust. You know, that's always mentioned. But it's no mention about all the correct decisions it makes. And there's loads and loads of examples of correct decisions. Where I feel for you, Andy, there's been a big change in the Premier League this year. The handball rule has been completely changed. I don't know if you know that. Anything that hit the hand was given as a penalty. Which was absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
There was the ball hitting the hand and nobody's got a chance of moving. That's all changed now. It's not a case of the ball just hits the hands. It's the hands in an unnatural position and he's moved his hand towards the ball. So it's worked really well, in my opinion, in the Premier League this year. It's a much better system and moving towards something that is much, much better. And we don't talk about all the offside decisions because even though they're going to be that wee bit offside, they're still offside, eh? It's still the correct decision. You know, so to me, VAR's a good thing. I think we're still learning how to use it because it's not just all black and white. But I think in the main, it's helped get decisions right. But I understand people's feelings. It might not be good for the game for fans when it takes so long and decisions are given. But for me, it's quite clear cut.
I think sometimes the way I look at it, Billy, is there has been quite a few goals when you talk about maybe a quarter of an inch, a decision, when a defender would never have got there anyway. And what happens is that a good goal has been penalised because of it. I would like something that drew maybe a line that was quite distinctive of a gap rather than a quarter of an inch. I know what you're saying, offside's offside, and that's the rules. But
if you look at
occasions recently that I've thought have been...
The game with Rangers, when they played abroad against Mourinho's team, where Dessa scored 3 goals.
Yes, that's right.
You could have, it wasn't even a millimetre, it was whatever.
It's the old Scottish measurement of a ball here, Andy.
Well, the usual whatever way the line could have moved either way, and it could be either on side or off side. But the problem is, you go to Scotland is we've got VAR, but we've only got VAR to a certain extent. No, the way Billy's got it in the English Premiership, we've only got a certain amount of cameras, and they're not even online. We at times our guys are guessing, and you know that's true.
Well, we know
I
that.
can't answer that. You're telling me.
So the club are paying over $100,000 for a facility that isn't done properly.
They got a Polaroid at your game for that, Andy.
No, it's just the guys that we get to referee the games are just sometimes well out of depth.
Oh, I'd agree with that. I'd agree with that one. But we'll not drag Billy into that because you'll get in trouble for making an opinion.
The guy who's the head guy now, Willie Collum, I remember him saying to me, come down and see him. And when you took me down to Kilsyth to see him, Billy, you always used to talk highly of Willie Collum.
When I see Willie Collum,
the top guy. Yeah. And I think, to be fair to him, he's quite honest and transparent in how he comes across.
Dennis, I seen Willie Collum at Cumbernauld Juniors. It was a Rangers v Celtic under 18 game, and Willie Young was the supervisor at that time, and as you know,
Christ, that's a while ago.
I was watching the game, and I walked into Willie Young and went, "Who's that referee in the game? He's gone to the top." You know what I mean? The way he handled the game, he was on top of everything. The way he did the players, and you know, people can have a go at him, but to me, he was destined for the top as soon as I seen him.
I had him refereeing a few of my games when I was managing junior at Cumbernauld.
Yeah.
I think he was like a 16-year-old.
Yeah.
And honestly, you thought he'd just come out of school.
Yeah.
And I'm with all this dirty dozen guys that were a mauled you for the price of a pint. And he's actually dictating to these guys. And honestly, I thought he was just a nasty wee piece of work. And he has gone to that level because his confidence overrode the deficiency he had, and that was looking so young. So, you know, he overrode that. He persevered, and he did become a very, very top referee.
He was the best, Billy. He was the best.
So, you know, but he was there a long while. I mean, you're going back 16-year-old. That was a way back in the 90s. So,
Trying to raise the standard of the referee now.
Yeah.
How have you found the referees down there, Billy?
I think the standard's really high, Dennis.
Is it?
The standard, in my opinion, the referees in the Premier League is really, really high for refereeing the league. But the players are so physical and fast. I think they did a good job. You know what I mean? Dennis, I still referee games at training. I referee games at training. I'm not a bad referee. And how difficult it is, you know. I think they're maligned, but yeah, the decision's going to be made wrong. It's a human nature that things get
100%.
But
I refereed a couple of matches with the reserves at Albion Rovers, and if you can believe that, it was worse than I am as a player, Billy. Horrendous job as a referee, honestly. Absolutely brutal. I could never do that job. It's a thankless task, but I'll tell you what, when just defending the English referees, they're fit as well, by the way.
Yeah, of course.
Because the movement of the game, they've really got to be on top of it.
Yeah.
But
they're well paid, Dennis. They're well paid. They're well paid.
Aye. I mean, that's what I was going to
say. They deserve their money. The pressure they're under.
But
and, you know,
that's a full-time job down there, Billy, as well. You know what I mean? They're well paid.
So I was going to say, that's the difference there. It's a full-time.
Yeah.
What was that game in the second division you brought up? It was at Hamilton's pitch. It's one for maybe YouTube. The guy that was the referee playing with Clyde. We're going back maybe a month and a half ago now.
Aye, I know. I'm trying to remember.
Aye.
I'm trying to remember the occasions yet, you know.
Anyway, moving on. So, Billy, I'm going to touch on the fact that when we spoke last week, you were walking back for training at 5:15.
Yeah.
I mean, I was gobsmacked to hear you say that you leave at 6:05 in the morning to go to training. When everybody really thinks that managers and players work from 9 o'clock to 12, Andy will disagree with that because he knows different. But as supporters, maybe in the terrace, and don't realise the hours that were put in. And when you said to me, when I was a bit taken aback, that was quite early to be leaving at 6:05 in the morning to go to training and maybe no back just before 6.
Dennis, your day consists of, because I leave here at 6:05, meet the coaches and the manager We're in the training ground for 6:40, and then we go to the gym for an hour and 15 minutes to about 8 o'clock, and then we have our breakfast, and then we start working. The players will come in at 10, probably a meeting 10:30 on the grass for 11:15, and then I'm back home roughly 5:30, 6 o'clock at night, most nights. So it's like 12 hours days, Dennis, but that's just the job,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And the thing you always done when you were at Brighton was that anywhere outside London, you flew. Are you still doing that? Because I know the state you were in going near that Forth Road Bridge when you were playing golf last year.
I don't like heights and that, Dennis. I still go to fly all the time, but I don't like it.
But you're doing that at West Ham. You fly if you're going up to Liverpool and places like that.
Yeah, but there's no so many flights because a lot of the clubs in London, you're London based. Brighton's not too far. Southampton's not too far. Just up at Liverpool, Manchester, Newcastle. Yeah. These places we fly then this year.
Yeah. So how far do you have to go in the morning to training? Because obviously that's another element that is.
Because we get into early, the traffic's really, really quiet. That's part of the reason we get in early as well.
Yeah, right. Okay.
You know what I mean? It's maybe 30 minutes because but if you get in there maybe 9 o'clock when the school runs on, it could take you an hour and 10 or 15 minutes, depending on the traffic, Dennis.
Cammy, you've just remembered that offside goal. What was it?
Aye, it was the referee blew basically for offside. The player was never offside. And him and his linesman spent the best part of 5 or 6 minutes. Took longer than a VAR decision for them to decide that nothing was happening, essentially, that they had to play on. But he did acknowledge the fact that he'd given the offside wrongly. I mean, Clyde player, he's about 6'6", and he was clearly 5 yards onside when the ball was played through. Linesman didn't give it. Referee gave the offside decision when he was not looking at the player and he was probably about 20 yards behind play. Gave the decision. Oh, mental, Andy, honestly. Gave the decision as offside. Blew before the ball hit the back of the net. So then obviously had to stop the game. And he spent the best part of 5 or 6 minutes debating with his linesman how he managed to restart the game and get away with it. And obviously I don't think he's refereed a game since, unfortunately, the guy.
It's one of them you needed to see in YouTube. Talking about it doesn't have the same impact, but it's total incompetence.
I was just looking for it there, but it's been removed for the Google Drive, obviously. I don't have access to the Google Drive. I'll rephrase that. We can go back and see it in an old show, because obviously it is on that, but it's more fun than it's worth, I think, to go back and try and find it.
Anyway, just finishing more or less off in a couple of points. Billy, do you go and see many games down there? I know you're snowed underway, but if you look at it, you're off now till Tuesday in relation to the next match you've got against Wolves. Have you? Do you take in games?
Dennis, I think I try to take in most of the 21s games.
Right.
We're trying to build a strong relationship with the management team of the 21s, getting to know the players and 18s as well. So that's my focus, really, to build that relationship. And we use a lot of the young players at training. We're going to use that tomorrow morning as well. The younger players want to come and train and play against the first team, because I think you give them hope that Ollie Scallos, who I mentioned, has now stepped up and they've got games, and I think it's rubbing off on the academy, because I think they went 7 games and they're all won every 7 games. So it's I think it's really, really important that you show these guys there is a pathway, even at a club like West Ham.
Right. Yeah. And Bruno, is he taking more of an active part than he's been over the last few seasons?
Bruno's taking a lot of training now. Bruno's, been with us almost 5 and a bit years now.
That's right.
And, he's learning all the time. Fantastic coach and fantastic guy.
Right.
And, he plays a big part in what we're doing, mate.
Right.
Yeah. Billy, what was your guys' plans, or what did you do? How did you guys spend the international break as obviously managers when maybe half your squad was away playing international football?
Yeah, we had 4 days off. I had 4 days back in Scotland. The players had 4 days off. Then we came in, we done 2 days, had a day off. done another 2. So it's been a wee bit longer. By the end of the game, we play the bounce game against Brentford at the stadium to break it up for the guys that are there and make it feel as though it's a real game in the stadium. And then, as I said before earlier in the show, we've got a 4-day lead into the Wolves game on Tuesday evening.
Yeah, no bother.
Yep.
Andy, looking forward to tomorrow's game.
Aye. I don't know about Billy. Knew that you're on the other side, you just sit and watch. There's nothing you can do. You're prepared. The players are prepared, and hopefully they'll go and enjoy the game. They'll embrace it. There'll be a good crowd tomorrow, and again, if they're getting about themselves, they'll want to be on the front foot and get after Thistle. But a tough game.
Well, there's only 4 points in it, so I'll tell you what, it would ruffle a few feathers if you can manage to close that gap.
Definitely would do.
Yeah. And Billy, you've just got to keep battling away and make sure that you take the Brighton approach to it with entertainment. I mean, I know a couple of people that actually say to me that Brighton, when you were there at the time, Brighton is now my second team. You're talking about teams that were supporting like Liverpool or Man United, and the entertainment that came with the Brighton was unbelievable, and they thoroughly loved the style of play. Obviously, hiccuped at Chelsea, but I'm sure I can see signs of it coming back at West Ham. And if you can continue that in the vein that you know you can do, the supporters will be absolutely delighted.
Dennis, at the moment, you can only influence every day you go in there. That's what you can do at the moment. Influence every action and every minute you get in there. And I think we do achieve that. And if it brings success, good. If it doesn't, then you've tried your best every day.
Your best shot.
Yeah.
That's what you can do in life, huh?
I know.
Precisely. Yeah. Well, guys, thank you very much. I've got to say thank you to you both for joining us. It's been absolutely fantastic. The two of you have taken over an hour out your night, Friday night, to spend it just talking to the two of us and anybody listening. So thank you very much. First of all, to Andy Millen. Andy, thanks for joining us as always.
Thanks, Cammy, for inviting me in.
Good, Andy.
Yeah.
And Billy, thank you very much. It's been an absolute pleasure. It's been good catching up with you. It's been a number of years, so thank you very much as well for you coming on.
No problem at all, Gary.
Good, Billy. Have you kept that 8 kilos off since you were playing golf?
Yeah, I'm still in the gym every morning, Dennis.
He's getting himself ready to go and start his new career again, getting back in the middle of the park again.
I know.
I don't know about that.
He's like, hey, Andy's going to be a referee next season for the next 3 or 4 seasons. Listen, guys, thank you very much. Thank you, as I say, to Andy. Thank you to Billy. Thank you, as always, to Dennis. Thanks to you for listening. As we say at the end of every show, go ahead, like, subscribe. It does help us out a ton. Tell your pals, because it is always happening on the pitch. Good night.
Good night.